Hey, it's Sarah from Wild Rose Path. Today in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the plant hawthorn and about life transitions as well. So if you're drawn to hawthorn as a great plant for moving through a life transition, stay tuned and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And so before we have a little bit of a chat about hawthorn, why don't we just go on a little quick walk around where I live, and we will have a little bit of a look at some hawthorn plants in the wild together. So yeah, we're live from the polytunnel this morning now. This is the first polytunnel video. Polytunnel is not quite finished yet. As you can see behind me, we don't have the doors in yet. There's supposed to be a door either end, which we don't have. So let's talk about hawthorn and specifically how it can support us during life transitions. So hawthorn isn't necessarily a herb we'd go and buy from the shop. You can buy dried hawthorns, and you can buy like the dried berries as well, and they both need a little bit of a different way of making. Like I will use kind of dried hawthorn tops and leaves, blossoms and leaves in tea making, and the berries need like a little bit longer to steep, so I tend to use those more in like making things like syrups and things where they're heated for a bit longer. Now where I live near the Howgill Fells, we've got quite a lot of hawthorn going on. We have just up, the fells are kind of that way, and there are a lot of very, very old hawthorn trees up there. There's some beautiful hawthorn trees. And as I'm filming this, you know, they're all coming into blossom. We're at that time of year. And it makes me reflect on what a useful plant it is for life transitions. So like medicinally, hawthorn is looked at as a very good tonic for the heart. And I think going further than just the medicinal, the physical body kind of uses for hawthorn, I see hawthorn as really a plant of like resilience and courage. So, you know, if you see it growing locally, it's a lot of abundantly here, because not everything grows very well up here. We are sort of getting up, we're not up the fell, but we're kind of near the bottom of the fell. We're on the hill. It's pretty windy here. We can have some harsh winters, and hawthorn just really has that kind of rooted resilience to it. It's kind of one of them plants where you can, at the right time of year, you can kind of take a bit of a cutting of a hawthorn plant and just pop it in the ground, and it is just doing its thing. It's really resilient. There's also a lot of kind of folklore and old wisdom that shares that you shouldn't go and chop a hawthorn tree down, particularly like a hawthorn tree on its own, not to like cut any of the branches. So we have a kind of solitary hawthorn tree near our house, and I think somebody did chop some of it off because there was some fencing being done. So I feel like I need to go and leave that hawthorn tree a little bit of an offering now. And that idea of like, you know, approaching hawthorn with respect, and treating it like, you know, maybe you treat like an elder of your family, for example, with sort of reverence and respect, and asking permission before you do anything, is that characterizes how kind of resilient and that kind of elder status of hawthorn, where it's been here a long time. You go and walk around them trees up the fell of hawthorn, and they've been here for such a long time. They've seen so much, they know so much. There's a lot of wisdom within that plant. And in terms of when we're moving through life transitions, I think that wisdom, that resilience, is something we can really draw upon. You know, the plant sort of says, you know, I've been here a long time. I've seen a lot of things. I've been through a lot of cycles. And, you know, when you're in the middle of your own life transition, sometimes it can feel like you know, no one else is going through this. It's only happening to you. It's hard to sometimes zoom out and look at the bigger picture and connect to that medicine of other people, other beings that have maybe not moved through the exact same situation as you, but that have been there, that have walked that path before you, and maybe have some wisdom to share. And to me, hawthorn is really a plant of courage as well. It embodies courage, which is something, you know, during a life transition, especially when you're kind of in the descent phase, the ending of something, you are really in need of courage at that time to be able to move through, especially when you can't see maybe what the next steps would be. And so when we look at some of the actual signatures of the plant itself, so we've got hawthorn as having, you know, a lot of thorns. If you are familiar with hawthorn, you've maybe got prickled a few times. So it's got those really strong thorns, which again speak to it's like resilience, and this element of protection. It's very protective of itself whilst it's growing. And I think that's a nice medicine to draw upon as well in a life transition, when, especially, you know, when we're in the in-between stage of a life transition and you get that really cracked open, vulnerable, raw feeling. And it's really good medicine then to be able to cultivate a kind of fierce protection around yourself almost. So it's that learning of drawing our boundaries again. Sometimes as we move from what was into what is to come, we have to learn to redraw our boundaries for ourselves. And hawthorn reminds us with that medicine that, you know, protecting ourselves is an important part of drawing boundaries. So with hawthorn's growth cycle and its blossoming and its berries, it really embodies on a visual level as well that process of life and death and moving from one stage to another. And that draws quite a nice parallel with the, you know, the ending, the death of the old cycle in a life transition and moving then through the unknown and slowly into the new cycle. Knowing that, you know, even if we are in that kind of fallow period, that almost the winter where we don't know if we're going to get through, knowing that at some point spring will come, the blossoms will come out again, we won't be in this phase forever. And I think as well, hawthorn always sort of knows to make enough berries for the winter. You know, when we see the colder winters, hawthorn makes enough berries, enough nourishment to sustain through the fallow periods. And I think that reminds us that, you know, in a life transition, we have that within us as well. We have, when we are in that kind of fallow period, we do intuitively we do have the resources and enough to sustain us through that in-between period, even if, you know, externally it doesn't always feel like it at the time. So, you know, if hawthorn is calling to you, or if you are in the, you know, maybe in the in-between of a life transition, then I would definitely recommend it as a wonderful plant to work with and experience its medicine. And I talk a little bit more about hawthorn in my free guide, which you can sign up for. I'll pop a link in the description below, and that talks a little bit more about hawthorn in there. And also, if you're in that place at the moment and you feel kind of called to the green world, you know, called to plants, drawn to plants on maybe a deeper level than just kind of knowing what plant is good for what physical ailment, we are going to be doing a gathering. I think it is June. I will again pop a link below and you can read a little bit more about that. We'll do a little gathering online where we'll just gather together for an hour or so and delve a little bit deeper into one particular plant and the medicine it has for us at this time as we go through this kind of unknown in-betweeny stage of a life transition. And you'd be welcome to join us. I think the June one, so I'm going to probably run about 4 times a year. The June one, I'm going to bring in wild rose. It's the first one. We have to bring in wild rose because that is just my absolute beautiful plant. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you have worked with hawthorn and kind of what, you know, if you have worked with hawthorn, what medicine does it bring up for you? Otherwise, I will see you soon for hopefully another polytunnel video.